My name is Laura Hansen, and tonight we're in New York City, where a small, simple device that costs less than a cup of coffee is drawing a five-borough fight with statewide stakes. Glue traps. They're in basement hallways, under utility sinks, behind fridges, in bodegas and brownstones and school custodial closets. Thumb-sized dots of bait on a shiny rectangle of adhesive. Cheap, ubiquitous, and for many officials, a quiet public health hazard wrapped in a slow-motion animal cruelty problem. In February 2026, the New York City Council took up a proposal to ban glue traps for pest control. Backed by major animal welfare voices, including PETA, it's a bill that asks a basic question of the city that prides itself on leading the country's public health playbook. Do we really need these things? Let's ground this. A glue trap is exactly what it sounds like, an adhesive board meant to catch rodents. It doesn't kill instantly. It immobilizes. Mice and rats struggle. They cry. They break bones. They chew their limbs in panic. They die from dehydration, starvation, exposure, or shock. Pets who wander into them end up with fur, skin, even eyelids torn. Songbirds and owls land on them and don't lift off. If you've never seen what a stuck animal looks like at hour 6, hour 12, hour 48, good. Most of us haven't. But the city's wildlife rehabbers and emergency vets have, night after night. The cruelty story is disturbing. The public health story is just as damning. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has long urged against glue traps for rodent mitigation in homes and workplaces, noting that cornered, terrified rodents shed hair and bodily fluids, including urine, which increases the risk of pathogens spreading in the very spaces we're trying to make safer. That's not animal rights rhetoric. That's hard-nosed disease control. And New York knows disease control. From trans fat in restaurant fryers to indoor smoking bans to salt warnings on menus, this city has repeatedly set a bar the rest of the country eventually meets. Glue traps may be next. The proposed ban is simple in concept. No more glue boards for pest control in New York City. The goal is to remove a product that creates suffering and amplifies risk without delivering better outcomes. The politics around it, however, are not so simple. On one side, you have families coming home to find the family cat mired in industrial adhesive, neighbors with wild birds stuck to stoops, parents avoiding basement laundry rooms because a dying mouse makes a sound that's impossible to forget. You have wildlife rehabilitators and veterinarians fielding calls from every zip code. You have sanitation workers and building supers tasked with peeling, prying, bagging, and tossing living animals into trash cans. You also have a city confronting its rat problem with unprecedented intensity, tightening trash set-out rules, hiring a dedicated rat czar, and piloting containerized waste in some of the densest neighborhoods. The message from City Hall has been clear: stop feeding rats, starve the colony, seal the cracks, remove the shelter, and trap cleanly and quickly when you must. And on the other side? Manufacturers who sell millions of glue boards a year. Big box retailers that fill seasonal aisles with stacks of sticky rectangles. Pest control companies that rely on them as a low-cost line item for clients who want something, anything, set tonight. The business model is brutally simple. Adhesives are cheap, margins are good, and demand rises when garbage piles up and weather pushes rats indoors. That's your clash. Supporters of the ban argue that glue traps do two very specific kinds of harm. First, they catch the wrong animals all the time: pets, songbirds, bats, even beneficial snakes that form a natural line of defense against rodents. Second, they turn routine maintenance into a health risk. The human contact point isn't a theoretical lab test. It's a resident, a porter, a tenant association leader pulling a dense mass of fur and mystery fluids off a 4x6-inch square that never promised a clean kill. Opponents often counter that New York's infestation pressures are unique, that glue boards work when other tools fail, that a ban removes a cheap and available option for the worst nights in the worst basements. But here's the thing: cheap and available are not synonyms for effective or safe. And when a product spreads harm around a building while tainting the air with new fears, it's a net loss, financially and morally. we have to talk about the wider frame. Rodent control isn't a product, it's a system. It's called Integrated Pest Management, IPM. It means closing entry points, sealing gaps with rodent-proof mesh and concrete, removing food sources, deploying traps that kill quickly and contain, auditing trash rooms and chute doors, storing waste in sealed containers, and validating results over time. When IPM is done right, it doesn't just knock back populations for a week. It changes the entire slope of a building's infestation curve for the season. New York's own housing programs have seen measurable declines in complaints when IPM replaces piecemeal quick fixes. That's not ideology. That's a better return on every dollar, from the super's overtime to the city's emergency calls. So why are glue traps still everywhere? Because they're a seductive shortcut. They look like action. They feel decisive. They let a landlord say, "We did something on the cheap," and their harm is mostly out of sight, until it isn't. Manufacturers know the optics. They don't run ads showing a gasping animal. They call the adhesive non-toxic, implying safety, ignoring that non-toxic sticky plus panicked mammal equals a splash zone of contamination. They sell innocence by omission. It's a good business. It's a bad public policy. The proposed New York City ban rides a growing global shift. In the United Kingdom, the sale and use of glue traps by the general public has been severely restricted, with usage limited to licensed professionals under strict controls. Other countries have moved toward tighter rules or outright bans. Here in the U.S., momentum is building at the city level, where pest control meets daily life most directly. And make no mistake, what New York does has a habit of leaping to other city halls. This isn't just about Manhattan lofts or Brooklyn walk-ups either. It's about the parks and backyards where songbirds land. It's about the hawks over the cross streets and the owls in the cemeteries. When a city floods its alleys with glue, it guarantees collateral damage to the very wildlife that helps keep rodent populations in balance. And then there's the household front line. Pets, curious, oblivious, insistent, are often first into trouble. The solvent needed to free a cat or dog risks chemical burns. The struggle causes deeper wounds. The panic can take days to resolve. It's an ER bill or a heartbreaking goodbye, and for what? A device that didn't solve the root problem in the first place. All of this is why PETA and other advocates have spent years documenting and pressuring. They've cataloged the injuries. They've sent footage to newsrooms. They've asked retailers to pull product voluntarily. Some specialty chains have responded. Many mass-market sellers have not. In city after city, the conversation lands back at the same place. If business won't move, law will. Which brings us back to City Council chambers last winter. The February 2026 proposal didn't appear out of thin air. It emerged from a wider municipal strategy to get serious about rats and hit the problem on multiple fronts: garbage management, inspections, building maintenance, and now product safety. And in Albany, Assemblymember Harvey Epstein has been a prominent voice on public interest consumer protections and humane policy. He, like others in the legislature, understands that a ban that begins in New York City can snowball into statewide standards. That's not a threat. It's a feature. City today, state tomorrow. It's how the ladder of reform is supposed to work. Add to that the chorus of municipal lawyers and public officials across New York who have worked on local nuisance and animal control codes, voices like Paula Kay, who see firsthand how sloppy tools make for messy outcomes. When the people tasked with enforcing health and housing laws tell you a device is making their jobs harder, take note. So what would a ban actually look like? It would likely phase in, giving property managers and pest control vendors a finite window to transition away from adhesives. It would empower inspectors to cite and fine for violations, the same way we manage other hazardous products in sensitive environments. It could carve out carefully defined exceptions for specialized, licensed operations if needed. Though most advocates argue the science and ethics don't justify any broad loophole, it would also be paired, if policymakers are serious, with a practical toolkit for alternatives. snap traps contained within locked stations designed to ensure a quick, clean kill. Electric traps that deliver an immediate result and keep the carcass secured. CO2-driven kill devices used widely in other countries with clear guidelines for humane operation. Ultrasonic gadgets and repellents? The evidence is mixed at best. Poisons? Those are a larger and separate fight, with their own grim collateral: dead raptors, poisoned pets, kids at risk. A smart ban on glue traps doesn't pretend poisons are the answer. It builds a system that makes poison unnecessary. Let's zoom out to the economics. A box of glue boards might cost a landlord a few dollars. Switching to enclosed snap traps, electric traps, or exclusion materials has a higher upfront price. But track the spend over 6 months and a pattern emerges. Buildings using proper IPM have fewer callbacks, fewer emergency visits, fewer ruined appliances and chewed wiring incidents, fewer tenant grievances, and fewer sanitation giveaways to the colony. The cheap option is only cheap if you don't count what follows: medical bills, wildlife rescues, pest rebounds, labor time, and the city resources that show up when shortcuts fail. Retailers will grumble. Manufacturers will warn of handcuffing the fight against rats. But these are the same playbook pages we've seen when cities restrict products that never should have been normalized. Trans fats were essential to affordability until they weren't. Smoking was a matter of personal choice until secondhand smoke data broke the frame. The sky didn't fall. The food got better. The air got cleaner. Public health won. Bans can be blunt tools. This one is precise. It targets a single class of devices that replace real solutions with visible suffering. It takes one harmful shortcut off the board, forcing building managers and pest professionals to pick up the tools that actually fix the problem. And it draws a moral line that a lot of New Yorkers already thought was city law. There's another layer here: enforcement dignity. When a city bans glue traps, it tells its own workers, the inspectors, the school custodians, the park staff, that the municipality won't sanction tasks that degrade them. No public servant should be asked to end a living animal's days with a trash can and a stick because a $5 piece of plastic and glue is called standard practice. We can set a better standard. What about domino effects beyond the Hudson? Historically, when New York City raises a health or animal welfare standard, the signal reaches Chicago, Boston, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles in a matter of months. Sometimes it jumps states. If this ban becomes law, expect hearings in state houses where advocates point to New York's rat pressures. If it works there, it can work anywhere, and to the fact that rodents don't check municipal boundaries. Albany will consider whether one city's rules should become a universal floor. If the state acts, manufacturers and retailers have to retool. And once the supply chain tips, other cities get the benefit without the fight. For viewers keeping score at home, here's a sober reading of the file. Glue traps prolong suffering and often fail the basic test of a humane kill. They increase the risk of pathogen spread in indoor spaces, the very reason for using them in the first place. They reliably ensnare non-target animals, pets, and wildlife, creating avoidable harm and public backlash. They provide the illusion of cheaper control while externalizing costs to families, workers, and the city. Viable, more humane alternatives exist and perform better when coupled with smart building management. New York City is structurally poised to lead a ban that scales statewide and beyond, just as it has on other public health issues. And the villain? It's not a person. It's an incentive structure, a blend of manufacturer profit and retailer indifference that keeps bad tools on shelves because they're easy to stock and easy to sell. Change that structure, and industry will pivot. They always do. Let's talk practicalities for anyone watching who runs a building, manages a school, or just wants to keep pests out of the kitchen without colliding with this debate. Start with exclusion. If you can slide a pencil under a door, a mouse can make a case for entry. Seal with metal kick plates, copper mesh, concrete patch, foam alone won't cut it. Containerize food waste. In NYC, that means lidded bins for building trash and strict adherence to set-out times. A bag on the curb is a rat buffet. A sealed bin is a locked fridge. Use enclosed quick-kill traps. They're cleaner, they're safer for pets and kids, and they give you a clear yes-no signal for removal. Log and map. The building that wins is the one that treats pest control like a maintenance plan, not a reaction. Notes, photos, dates. Patterns emerge, and solutions get smarter. Partner with a vendor who does IPM. Ask up front what their adhesive policy is. If they lean on glue boards, find someone else. There are good firms out there. Educate tenants. The best trap in the world loses to an open bag of birdseed in a closet or a buffet of pet food on the floor. Will a ban alone solve the rat problem? No, nothing alone will. But it's a lever. It forces the entire system up a rung, away from spectacle and toward science. And for those worried about the political courage to act, consider the coalition here. Animal welfare organizations like PETA pushing hard with footage you can't unsee. Public health voices pointing to CDC guidance. Environmental advocates worried about collateral wildlife harm. Parents and seniors who have had enough of the nightly scurry. City workers who don't want a barbaric job baked into their job description. On the lawmaking side, public officials who've built reputations on practical reforms are watching. Assemblymember Harvey Epstein understands the stakes in Albany and the art of scaling a city test case to state law. And voices like Paula Kay from the municipal law trenches know how these rules play out on the ground, where enforcement, not press releases, defines success. New York has been here before. The moment the city decides that a ubiquitous thing isn't compatible with who we say we are. Sometimes that's a product on a shelf. Sometimes it's a practice everyone stopped questioning. The council's glue trap proposal is asking this town to question again the likely timeline. You'll see hearings. You'll see testimony. Wildlife rehabbers, pediatricians, building supers, industry reps. Expect the manufacturers to warn of unintended consequences. Expect the counterpoint. The unintended consequences are already here. If the bill moves, you'll see a phase-in with clear penalties and a public education push. If it stalls, expect it to resurface, because this issue sits at the intersection of compassion and competence, a rare place where policy can speak to heart and head at once. Either way, this story isn't going away. Not while our stoops carry feathers glued to board backings. Not while our pets come home half bald. Not while our basement floors trade sanitation for suffering. A city that's serious about rats has to be serious about its tools. That means banning glue traps. That means investing in IPM. That means building managers and tenants not just on the same page, but on the same plan. New York can do this. Then other cities will. Then states will. That's the arc here. We've seen what happens when we lift standards across a map. Manufacturers innovate, retailers adapt, consumers stop buying devices that make people's lives harder. The night gets a little quieter, the morning gets a little easier, and the city, one policy at a time, becomes a bit more humane and a lot more effective. I'll keep following the bill, the hearings, and the money behind the lobby. And I'll keep talking to the people who live this, from supers in buildings that got it right to families who paid the highest price for a cheap fix. For now, remember this. The measure of a city isn't how loudly it declares war on rats. It's how carefully it chooses its weapons. I'm Laura Hansen. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay sharp, and I'll see you next time.